Hey, we're back at Gen Con. This is my first repeat subject for a video, so I don't know how to intro it this time. I don't want to just repeat myself from last time, but I'm sure I will be. Interacting more with other con-goers this year, I have a bit more confidence in my knowledge base for the goings-on at Gen Con, though with how huge this thing is, there's always going to be things I don't know about. Either way, I enjoyed sharing some tips and tricks I've learned over my years attending in the last video, so I have some more in store for this one. I went to Gen Con 2025, and here's what I thought. Drove through some rainy weather and arrived at a very humid Indianapolis in the evening on Wednesday. We had a couple events scheduled for this day, but we were running late, so I hopped out of the car as we passed the convention center while my friends looked for parking. We somehow did an exact repeat of last year, seemingly down to the minute, where we left home in the afternoon and should have had plenty of time to reach the city and our events on times, but because of traffic, construction, and the like, we ended up completely missing the first and being about a half hour late to the second. It's good I got out when I did though, as we would have been even later. We always get our badges and tickets on location, and the line this year was literally out the door and around the corner. Regardless, I still like doing it this way. I've heard plenty of stories that have scared me away from mail ordering badges, and by now this line is part of the Gen Con experience for me. The event we missed, twice now, was the Stink, which as I understand is sort of an open gaming social event thing. I only discovered it last year from perusing community posts, but it seems like it'd be worth a try. Maybe next year. I go into how I find new events in my Wednesday pre-gaming in the last video, so check that one out if you want more info. The other event that we were a bit late for was a National Security Decision-Making Megagame, or NSDM for short. We were just as late as we had been the year prior, but instead of just calling it a night like last time, this year we talked to some moderators and found some teams to jump in on. If you've never played a mega game before, they're large-scale simulation games with somewhat loose core rules and more of a focus on social interaction and manipulation. In this, we were all key members of various world governments, and we had to write policies to benefit our countries and potentially harm others. This is a short version of one at only 2 hours, as a lot of the time these can take up half a day or more, and getting in late made for a bit of a learning curve for us, but we got the hang of it, I think. Or at least my friends did. I really had no idea what was going on. Apparently, there was a viral pandemic going on in the game, and I literally didn't even know that was an aspect of the game until the post-game wrap-up discussion thing. I did make my policy reader guy laugh with the single policy that I wrote, so I consider that a small victory in itself, I guess. Despite how stupid and inept this experience made me feel, I do think I'd be interested in trying this again, provided we show up on time. Our regular diner from the year before was now shut down, sadly, so we had to find a new breakfast spot on the fly. Thankfully, we found the Steer Inn Diner, which we found out afterwards was featured on Triple D. That was perfect. That was a perfect read. I referred to the food at the last place as standard diner fare that was solid but nothing too fantastic. Well, Steer Inn was fantastic. Corned beef hash is something I'll always try at a new place, and this may have been the best I've ever had. All the food was very good actually, but I'm still thinking about that hash, man. Getting to the downtown area was difficult this year due to a lot of construction going on, and I ended up hopping out of the car exactly where I had the day before to make sure we weren't left out of our first event of the day, a series of puzzle games aptly named Puzzle Masters. It's a good thing I did because the traffic was so bad that it took my friends almost an hour and a half to find parking and to get to the room. They were able to participate in the last couple challenges, but honestly, if you were going to miss one event on our schedule for the weekend, this was the one to miss. It felt like a slapdash series of games you'd give students to do with their end-of-class free time. Some of the puzzles included a word search, a simple math crossword thing, and a color-based Sudoku that me and another friend of mine were pretty sure was literally unsolvable. I do the New York Times Sudoku every day, so I embarrassingly know what I'm talking about. Yes, I'm very cool, actually. I don't know. I love puzzle games, so maybe I had too high of expectations. As I said in my previous video, events can be hit or miss, and you learn as you go. The next event right after this was in the same room, put on by the same group. And it was a series of simple dexterity challenges that you had to complete in 1 minute, aptly named Minute to Win It, except for the ones where you had more than a minute. Look, this was definitely an improvement from the previous event, but it was still lackluster. Adding the time limit to easy tasks is a fun thing, and it was a more engaging event overall, but the production of it all left a lot to be desired. The point system was not balanced at all, but we're not even sure if they had prizes or anything for the winner, so it doesn't even matter that much. I don't like being this harsh, but I also want to be honest in my videos to give advice that I stand behind and not just say everything's great if I don't think it's all great. I'm trying to give advice here where I can, so I try to be fair, but offer criticism where I can, and that's what I'm doing here. We also paid $10 each for both of these events, so there you go. I paid for my right to be a bit critical here. Most events I do at a given Gen Con are under like $5 or $6, so this should have been, a little better to say the least. Minute to Win It wasn't a total waste, but I mean, with that price, I'm not doing these again. Our schedule was jam-packed this day, so we took the little time we had before our next event to run all the way over to Union Station to pick up our packets for the Orc Stomp 5K, then all the way back and past where we were to the Marriott for our round of Critical Putt. They're pretty strict on people starting on time, and luckily we made it there on the dot. We even timed our walk over so that we knew how much time we had to get back. Total whiplash in regards to production and entertainment value between Critical Putt and the previous events. It's basically just fantasy-themed putt-putt golf, and right away you're greeted by some actors who give you the overview and your weapons before sending you out on your quest.
For the road, we do prize skills for both all in this kitchen, so along with your adventures, a mighty dagger.
Oh. I am glad that I'm not the rogue.
Is the dagger acceptable? It does not have to.
Do you have maybe a long sword?
Maybe a great
I was really hoping
I love the commitment from everyone there, and the builds of all the different holes got really cool as you went along. Each player also had a unique class, which was a little unique puzzle on your scorecard for you to figure out while you golfed. I needed help with mine though. I don't know why I was struggling so much with thinky stuff these few days. I wish I could blame it on me being sick, as I was battling a cold the whole weekend, but it's probably just me having donkey brain. My only critique with this event really is that your golf score really doesn't matter. Not that it matters much when you do normal golf, but when you start, they tell you that your score is tied to the money you get to spend later. And you do have a point midway through where you can buy some items, mostly just stuff that adds more silliness to the game, which is totally cool with me. But after that, there's no point. In the second half, we were just kind of golfing willy-nilly, and it did take away from the game a little for me. Just a little, because overall, I thought this was great. It costs almost $40, which is the most expensive event I've ever done at Gen Con, and for that reason alone, I don't know if I would want to do this again. I'm glad I was able to experience it once, and it was really fun, but that's still a steep price for an event, for me personally. For my Gen Con experience, that is on the high end, so take that as you will. If you're used to spending more on events, this would be great. Like if $40 is what you normally spend, this is an awesome event. Do it. And still, this was extremely more worth its value than the events we did before it. Okay, I'll stop talking about those. Return to the room we did those dumb puzzle games in again. For Team Trivia hosted by the Game Show guys. We did this and another event hosted by them last year, and we really enjoyed it, so we signed up for both again. We don't do super well in this one. I think we've placed somewhere in the middle both times, but they're very good trivia hosts, and I love how clever their questions are. After that, we finally had an actual break in our schedule around 5 p.m., so we headed over to the food trucks for dinner. I love food trucks and food in general, so good eating is one of my favorite things about Gen Con. There's so many food trucks around, and I can get pretty bad analysis paralysis deciding which one I want, though this time me and my friends all agreed on Indie Taco pretty quickly. Indian is maybe my favorite cuisine, or Mexican, or Thai, or Nepalese. And I love tacos, so a fusion of that seemed like heaven to me. While it wasn't quite that, it's so innately appealing to me that I still thought it was pretty good. We unanimously agreed that we had to get some proper Indian food before we left Indianapolis, but there weren't any restaurants close enough to the convention center, so we put a pin in that. Nearly all of our events today were oddly in the same 2 spots, which is even weirder considering how many we had. So we went to the Marriott again and hung out for a little and played a game in some side hallway for a bit of respite before we headed into a session of Morkborg. Morkborg. Maybe it's Morkborg. Morkborg. I'm always trying to expand my horizons and try new things at Gen Con, and I had never done a tabletop RPG there despite that kind of being its thing. I remembered seeing multiple people recommend Morkborg in particular as one of the best RPGs you can play at Gen Con, so I signed up and it was fine. It's just like an RPG with Vikings. I've mentioned before that I'm not steeped in tabletop RPG culture. I mostly just play D&D and some stray one-shots of other systems when I see them, but I don't know what makes any one better than another other than the theme and setting. Too often when I play a new RPG, I wind up feeling underwhelmed. Maybe that's my fault. Maybe I hype it up too much for myself, like it's going to be so different, but maybe all people are talking about when they say that like this game is better than this one is just the theme. Maybe they just like the theme. On the other hand, it could be that me and my friends were just really exhausted at this point after running around all day, which wasn't helped by me being sick and, well, another one of my friends now getting sick. So maybe that was part of it. Probably the most jam-packed day of Gen Con I've ever done, and this was just day 1. The Orc Stomp 5K was supposed to be our start to Friday, but my friend really got hit with the sick bug overnight, and I still wasn't feeling tip-top, so we ended up skipping it. I felt kind of lousy and self-critical about it, but it was probably the smart move. Wizards of the Coast migrated a lot of the Magic events to Lucas Oil this year, so we headed in there for the Mini Masters tournament. It's a somewhat roughshod format of the game where I made it to the second round but didn't feel like either of my games were won because of strategy, just luck. You get some free cards though, so it's a 10 out of 10 event in my eyes. Following that, we played in the qualifier for the Terraforming Mars tournament. I'm lucky to have been able to do tournaments for some of my foundational games that got me into the hobby these last few years, and Terraforming Mars is another one of those. I had a special relationship with this game because even though I've played several, even dozens of games of it over the years, this was one of the few games that I had never lost once. Emphasis on had since, well, this marked my first loss. I actually got last place, and I have the feeling that I gave my opponents the impression that I had never played this game before. Just nerves, I think. Had some free time, unlike most of the previous 2 days, so we did a quick visit to the vendor hall, picking up our Backer Kit passports and demoing a game at their booth. Backer Kit does a stamp hunt every year where you go to the sponsored booths listed in the passport booklet and get a stamp at each. If you fill out the booklet, you get a free pin. I like collecting pins, and it's a fun, loose guide around the vendor hall expanse, so it's something I always look forward to. Giant Galaxy Trucker was up next, which is a one-round version of the game Galaxy Trucker, but get this, it's big. It's big. Because of the chaotic nature of the large-scale game and having to literally run around to get your pieces, this felt like the first true game of Galaxy Trucker I had ever played. Don't get me wrong, I love this game normally, but my game group is way too calm and collected for it, so we're all usually able to finish our ships, and they tend to hold together pretty well every time, but the desired effect is the opposite of that, which is what this was. So it was great. After that was movie trivia, hosted again by the Game Show guys. This is much more our forte, and our team very nearly tied for first place, but they didn't give us points for an answer we had misunderstood the question for. It didn't matter anyway, because we definitely would not have won that tiebreaker question. Next time for sure. Maybe. Had dinner at Brothers, a bar nearby that's a Gen Con staple for us. We've noticed it lean towards more of a club vibe and less of a restaurant over the years, but their food is still great, and it's very close to everything, which is super nice. Just please bring back cornhole. You're in Indiana. No cornhole should be a capital offense. The rest of our night was full of our regular events that we tend to do each year. A Pokemon build-and battle that felt as oddly wonky as the earlier Magic Mini Masters tournament. Not that it wasn't still fun. I always love a chance to play competitive Pokemon these days. Just wonky. This was immediately followed up by Two Rooms and a Boom, a sort of mega game that is always one of my favorite things we do every year. Big rec from me. These games are always great, and the energy is so strong that no one really cares if they win or lose. Finally, we closed the night out at the Film Festival's Horror Shorts block. Like every year, I submit a short film to the Gen Con Film Festival, and luckily, like every year, it got accepted. There was some error or corruption in the file transfer though, because my short had a terrible audio and visual desync to where the video was skipping and speeding up. It was basically unwatchable. It was very hard for me to watch.
This hurts.
Somehow though, people were still laughing at most of the jokes, so in a way that's a pretty great compliment. Saturday was a much more relaxed day than the previous few, thankfully. Even without doing the 5K, it was nice to be able to sleep in past 7 a.m. for once. We did still have a couple events to do, the first of which being NASCRAG Survivor. NASCRAG is a group that's been around Gen Con for a long time, mainly focusing on D&D or RPG tournaments or something. I honestly still don't really understand what they do usually, but their Survivor event was new for them. It was another puzzle bowl in the same vein as the Puzzle Masters game from the other day, but at the complete opposite end of the spectrum. These guys were so well organized, animated, and overall great GMs. The puzzles themselves were so much better, where figuring out what the question even is half of the puzzle. A couple of the solutions were very obtuse though, and others required a decent amount of D&D knowledge, which thankfully the rest of my team had covered. We did terrible at this game, but it was the most fun I had at any of the puzzly type events we did this year. If you made a groan-worthy pun, the judges would award you a point, and my team used that to our advantage as much as possible. Through puns alone, we were able to end up at a cool net 0. Following this was a huge break in our schedule, the only time we had several hours in a row free. My friend really wanted to try out the pinball machines in Pinball Alley, so we played a few games there. I've played plenty of pinball before, but this was more fun than I was expecting. Maybe the machines were just more intricate and entertaining than ones I've played, or maybe it's because I played the best round of pinball I think I've ever played. The per game cost is a bit pricey, as are most things at Gen Con, but I'm glad we took the time to do this. I think it was nice to just do something on a whim and not have a time crunch or anything, a nice change of pace for us. We decided to take advantage of our big chunk of free time and finally dove into the vendor hall properly, though note to self and others, you really gotta break up your time in the hall. We combed nearly every aisle of this place, spending about 6 hours doing so, and we were pretty well spent by the end of it. On the one hand, it was nice to knock out nearly the entirety of the vendor hall in one go, but on the other, look, it's not like I'm the most fit person in the world or that you're constantly exerting yourself here, but even more than your body getting tired, your brain just zaps out at some point from the overload of everything. There's just so much going on all the time, everywhere around you. It's the most mentally drained I've felt by something in a while. I talked before about the joy I find in the moments of respite during Gen Con, where I can do something like play a game I've played dozens of times before in some side hallway. Well, you do not have that option in the vendor hall. You are knee-deep in the nerd. I really think even just 2-3 hour chunks would be much less taxing. Artist Alley alone might have taken about that long for us, so maybe that's how we should break it up next time. As I said, we got a lot of stuff covered in this go. In addition to the backer kit stamp hunt, I always flip through the coupon book and mark out the very few coupons with reasonable deals on my map. It seems like most coupons tend to be along the lines of get 50 cents off when you spend $2,000. I forgot I wrote that hyperbole. It's hyperbole, but the point still stands. Hachette had one that gave you different percents off of a purchase if you did stuff like demo games and solve the mystery on their giant micro-macro Crime City backdrop. Me and my friend did all of those discount options, and we each bought a copy of the new versions of that game. I love the method of discounting via engaging with the products, and the fact that it wasn't an insulting disparity of discount to cost made that an even easier sell for me. See, game companies, it's not that hard. We grabbed some more food truck food after our vendor hall odyssey. I wasn't even that hungry. I think I just had an unconscious need to re-energize my brain. I ended up going with a Venezuelan truck this time, as I'd never had that particular cuisine. Also got a Critical Hit drink, as they have a coupon that makes their ridiculously overpriced drinks slightly less overpriced. I'd gotten one from them before and forgot how lackluster they are. Honestly, not even worth it with the coupon. Overall, this meal was still fine. It wasn't bad. I guess I was just a little let down. Crokinole tournament was after this, but I don't really have anything to report on this, which is fine because I forgot to film it. Just more of the same. I never make it too far in the tournament, but it's a fun time regardless. Had a bit of free time before the Gen Con dance, so we hung out at the Slippery Noodle Inn, an old blues bar. It sits across the street from where we always park, and it's always intrigued us, especially once we found out about its history.
Horse?
Yeah.
It's a donkey. Turns out it's not only the oldest building in the city, it's also the oldest bar in the state. You can feel the history as you walk through it. The layout is so unconventional by modern standards, and the whole place oozes charm. We sat in the back just in time to catch Piper and the Hard Times, the most blues-sounding and looking blues band you could imagine. I'm not even particularly a blues fan. It's not really a genre I listen to normally, but between the atmosphere of the building, the vibes of the crowd, and the energy and sound of the band, looking back, this might have been my favorite thing we did all weekend. Which isn't to downplay how great Gen Con is. It is. That's why we're there. That's why I go every year. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite things to do every year. But this was just such a different and enrapturing experience, and just a good time. We were originally just planning to stay for a drink or two, but we wound up watching their whole show. As put by my friend, I did a 10 out of 10 dap with the lead singer as they came to the floor for their last song. I think they could tell we were having a good time. The drummer even came over and talked to us for a while after the show. I'd literally never even heard of these guys before, but that still felt cool. And he was really nice, because I could tell how much he was trying to look interested in us telling him about Gen Con and board games. At the dance, I got turned around in the basement and wound up in a speakeasy basement bar that I never knew existed before. Not an actual speakeasy, of course. That had quotes around it in my script, but I guess you wouldn't know that. Just a relatively quiet bar that'd serve as a break from the noise of the dance, and it's way less crowded, so something to keep in mind for the future. Dance was dance. And with some of these repeat events, I'm really not sure what else to say. Sunday was our free day, and the last of the con. This was something we did do right, and that is keeping Sunday open and not scheduling anything for it. I'm not really feeling wiped out from the weekend until I get back home, but it's nice to spend the last day winding down and just tackling random stuff and not having to worry about time or deadlines. The first thing we did was, of course, one last breakfast at Steerin, then dipping back into the vendor hall to cover the few spots we missed the day before. Mostly I wanted to check out the booth with all the miniature book nooks. I think I might make getting one of those a regular thing for me each year. A lot of the booths have last day discounts, which I wish we had perused more for. I think I'm going to make a HeroScape purchase and event a regular thing too, especially since you get some good freebies with them, which does make up some for the obscene prices on all of it. I love the game, but it's so expensive that I think my annual Gen Con purchase of something from it will be my only purchase from now on. We were able to squeeze into an event battle for HeroScape right on time, which featured a couple figures from the original set. The event battles are cheap, and it's awesome to be able to play on those huge setups they have. It was me and my friend versus one guy who was new to the game, but he kept getting godly roll after godly roll, so he was crushing us. My friend wanted to demo Innovation, so we got in at a table in the vendor hall. I don't know why, but I always think it's so neat to play games in the vendor hall itself. You're still in the thick of it, but separated from the chaos. It's like, yeah, I'm at Gen Con. Or something. Said goodbye to the con, but stopped before leaving the city entirely for some much anticipated Indian food at Haveli Indian Restaurant. Coincidentally, right next to the other Brothers location. My friend said it was the best Indian food he'd ever had, and while I wouldn't say that myself, it was probably the best food I had on the trip. I mean, Indian food is Indian food. It's good. Isn't that such a good way to end a video about Gen Con, is talking about Indian food? It makes sense, right? That's what everybody knows about Gen Con. That's what they associate with it, is the Indian cuisine. It's good stuff. And that's another Gen Con in the books. I hope I had at least some new wisdom to share this time. Our schedule does repeat some, but we also did a lot of new stuff this year, so I don't think this was too repetitive. I enjoy slowly fine-tuning my Gen Con experience, increasingly so these last few years, figuring out which events I like, which I don't. Eventually I'll have it mastered, and I'll finally be able to spend the entire 4 days sitting on the floor in a blank hallway, hissing at passerby until I'm dragged away by animal control. Yeah. Anyway, that's what I thought about Gen Con 2025.